Hi, everyone. This is the next in our series of compressed air challenge interviews of superstars of compressed air. I'm Ron Marshall. I'm the training and marketing coordinator of Compressed Air Challenge. We're recording a series of interviews to give people a glimpse of the steps that you need to become a successful compressed air industry professional. And I have with me today Bill Scales, one of our top trainers. Bill, would you be able to tell everyone about yourself and a bit about your work and what you do?
Sure, Ron. Presently, I work from a good-sized office on the second floor of an office building in New Hyde Park, New York, which is about 15 minutes from home. I continue to do compressed air systems consulting. Have done 5 business consulting, nothing to do with air compressors, and counseling small and mid-sized companies. They may have a small compressor or none. I'm a member of the board of directors of 2 companies and occasionally get calls from others. So that's really been the work that I do after I retired from Scales Industrial Technology, the Scales air compressor, in 2017. I had sold the company in 2016. So I'm still active and semi-retired, if you will.
Okay, very good. So you were a successful compressed air business owner, right? And you had a very large business in the New York area, right?
Well, yes, it was very successful. I started it in Carl Place, New York, and went back to being a mechanic, if you will. But
Yes.
it's a long history before that. We wound up with 4 locations, active locations, really. There was one in Pennsylvania, one in Connecticut, one in New Jersey, and the one in New York. We wound up with 190 employees, and we had an ESOP, so when the company was sold, the employees got, let's see, about 48% of the total figure that the company was sold for. So that's a
Very
little
good.
bit different. But
Yeah.
what else did you want to ask me?
I wanted to ask you how you got started in the compressed air business.
Well, that's a long story.
Yeah.
In 1948, I passed the mathematics exam to qualify for a special education at Brooklyn Technical High School, which had pre-engineering curriculums. If you went to a neighborhood high school, they were all within walking distance, but I had to take the subway to downtown Brooklyn, and the total trip was just about more than an hour, including the walk to the subway and then to the school. Brooklyn Tech was a well-known school at the time, was one of the 3 top in the nation, rated that high. There was the Bronx High School of Science, Stuyvesant High School, and Brooklyn Tech. Brooklyn Tech was 9 stories high, 6,000 boys attended, but typically only about 1,200 or so would graduate, and others had, just failed, and they had to go to their neighborhood schools. It was a great education, and I'll give you an example. Freshman year, it included mathematics above the curriculum of neighborhood schools. As a freshman, one subject was industrial processes. We learned how iron ore, aluminum, and copper and other minerals became products for industry. Another, was really excellent. Another important class was mechanical drawing. We used ink at that time, not ballpoint, and you had to use regular ink and a special pen. Another important class was in the sophomore year, there was actually a foundry where all of us created our own molds, and we actually poured molten metal in a separate area.
Yeah, sounds like it was probably one of the first technical schools that you attended. But what about the compressed air business? How did you get started in that?
In 1951, I was 16 years old and started as a summer helper or an apprentice at an air compressor repair shop on the west side of Manhattan. That's in New York City. We were rebuilding compressors up to 40 horsepower, most of them air-cooled. Eventually, I became a mechanic and worked 20 to 30 hours a week, paid my tuition through Brooklyn Polytechnic University School of Engineering. And I graduated in 1956 with an electrical engineering degree with the power option for motors and generators. I had 3 job offers. The lowest was General Electric at $400 a month, compared to almost $600 at a Long Island Aircraft Engineering Manufacturing Company. The GE headquarters were at 517 Lexington Avenue in Midtown Manhattan. They offered a great management training program. I guess it was late May or early June. I had a mentor, and he was senior VP who placed me in technical sales for New York sales, responding to requests from a lot of the salesmen in the New York area for prices and availability, motors, controls, for national accounts and large industrial manufacturers. In September, I was scheduled for 4 different 3-month assignments. The first one in Fort Wayne, Indiana, in technical sales for electric induction motors. Bloomington, Illinois, designing motor control panels, and also in the research lab. Pittsfield, Mass, transformer production lines, working with the line supervisors. And then finally, Schenectady, New York, where GE had 80,000 employees, and there I was testing large motors and generators. Subsequently, sometime I don't remember exactly the time, probably a year or so later, I returned to corporate headquarters in New York City, reporting to my original mentor, Mr. Utall. There was an opportunity for a technical sales management position to replace the department manager who was retiring in a few months. Well, my girlfriend and I were talking about marriage, and she asked if I would be permanent at GE headquarters. It was unlikely because to move up the ladder, which I wanted to do, you had to move every 3 to 4 years. Well, my girlfriend won out. I left GE. I don't know if it was good for her or not so good, but I left GE back to the air compressor company where it started my career, and I became the manager of a Long Island branch that had 3 employees. I was driving a truck and was the sales engineer and also field service mechanic. The company, small as it was, it was very small, and it progressed to 7 employees. And the owners decided I would be the GM, general manager of both branches, and they bought a building in Jackson Heights, Queens, and I was the general manager. In 1964, I passed the test. I became a professional engineer, a PE. And sometime in January, or I think it was January of 1966, I left my employer and I started Scales Air Compressor in Carle Place, New York, which was about 40 or 50 miles east from my former company. I recognized that there were 2 counties on the eastern end of Long Island that were Nassau and Suffolk counties. They were beginning to build plants, and many New York City manufacturers were locating in those counties. And then I was once again a truck driver and a salesman. So That was it, really. That's quite a long history, and I hope I didn't put you to sleep, but that's okay.
Yeah, no problem. And I'd like the talk about the mentor helping you through your career and stuff like that. Now you're a pretty high expert in compressed air. Where did you get the knowledge to become an expert?
I read everything that was available on air compressors. There was something called the Odell's Handbook that was both hands-on and also some degree of some literature you could read. There were, at the time, there were quarterly reports from the CAGI on air compressors. I think they were quarterly. So somehow I was on the mailing list. I don't know how I got on there, but I was. But one of the most informative books that I read was Compressed Air and Gas Data by Ingersoll Rand Company. They were at 11 Broadway, New York. It has 34 chapters in it, and I'd say close to 1,000 pages. However, most of all the information we received was supply side, whereas the greatest savings were, as I pointed out many years ago, on the demand side. And most plants thought that compressed air was cheap.
Yeah.
And the rest of the way I got it, more knowledge, I guess, was personal observation of the demand and placing an estimated dollar value on it. And
Right.
when I get it, I'm sorry. Anyhow, the original name of the company was Scales Air Compressor Company, and I visited, or as a salesman would call on many coal plants, was both a service mechanic and a salesman developing new accounts. I always, asked permission when I gained entrance to the factories. I asked permission. I'd visit the manufacturing production area so I could review the compressed air requirements before making any kind of a recommendation, whether it was on the type or the size of the compressor. In addition, I always made a freehand sketch of the compressor room and accessory equipment, so that if we did get the order for a new air compressor, if that's what they needed, it would make it easier for mechanics to complete the installation reading by freehand sketch. But as a matter of fact, in 1966, when I started Scales Air Compressor, the largest refrigerated air dryer were 125 CFM, and there were only 3 manufacturers of refrigerated air dryers. So, anyhow.
Very good. Yeah, very good. Thank you for that. And I'd like to talk about the demand side of the system. That's very important. Now, what advice would you have for people who wanted to advance in the industry?
Well, don't be afraid to call on the largest companies if that's what it is. But if you're in sales, then it would be a good idea if you had some service aptitudes and mechanical experiences. The first big push to reduce energy consumption really didn't appear until about 1972, when I was starting that business, if you will, Air Compressor Systems Consultants, and it was separate and apart as a PE. So I passed the PE exam, I think I said in 64 or so. And that really got me an introduction to other people, and I began the Energy Savings Reviewer Systems. And the advice I think I'd learned to love the job. I'd make it fun. I would say keep learning, and you can lose your money, but you can never lose your knowledge.
Yes.
I can tell you, that separate company really made great opportunities for me. I was all over the world. If you're acting as a consultant, you're really going to lose credibility if you're also the salesman quoting the job. As a registered professional engineer with my second company that was Air Compressor Systems Consultants, I never sold an air compressor, and I never, ever recommended Scales. So the other thing I would suggest is remain active in, I guess, different organizations, attend their meetings. The money that you spend to get to these meetings and such is worthwhile, and it provides opportunities to exchange opinions and learn about new products and get to speak with other people.
Yes.
I'd read the reports and the articles in industry magazines and keep an open mind. You just don't know what you're going to see and learn, or you may find things that you consider to be questionable. So,
very good, very good.
Question?
Yes, it does. Thanks very much. Now, you're familiar with the compressed air training material, the compressed air challenge training material. If you had to choose the 3 most important points out of the material that's gone over in our training, which would they be and why?
I'd say wherever you're at a plant, absolutely be sure you visit the compressor room at least twice and tour the production areas, taking copious notes of what you have observed. Always, I think I mentioned this before, make a sketch of the equipment and the piping in the compressor rooms. Some plants have multiple compressor areas. Be up to date and learn how to use today's instrumentation to gather the information. to provide an excellent report. And you know, there was something in the Fundamentals of Compressed Air Systems workbook, and I have that on my desk. And what it says, page 1 is an agenda. Page 2, what is the compressed air challenge? Page 3 is the learning objectives. And page 4 is the 7-step action plan. So I keep that on my desk as a reminder that, you know, when I'm going to visit a plant, that's always it. And the other interesting thing is that you can also use that in things other than compressed air systems, I guess. I do to some extent. Does that answer your question, Ron?
Yeah, thank you very much. So the block diagram, being able to do baselining, and the 7-step action plan are pretty important points. Thanks very much for your great answers. And there it is, folks. Thanks very much for agreeing to this interview. Be sure to join us for our next interview coming up. You'll see it in social media. And I just wanted to let you know, if you're interested in taking our training, please check out our calendar at the Compressed Air Challenge website. There's a calendar link there, and we'll provide the information and the link for the link in the text included in this recording. So thanks very much, Bill, for answering your questions.